Triple M Rock on the Footy on a Saturday afternoon. Tony Squires, Ryan Girdler, Graham Micheal Chammas with you. Let's turn our attention to the Roosters and the Broncos. The Roosters have racked up 100 points over the past 2 weeks, 40-18 over the Broncos, and it wasn't just the scoreline that's devastating for Brisbane. It is the loss of Adam Reynolds with that ruptured bicep. Arthur's also with a broken jaw, Chammas,
Yeah, Jesse Arthurs will go into surgery this afternoon. He's looking, I think, at about 8 weeks at the moment. Jesse Arthurs, they're hoping to have him back at that point. Corey Oates, you imagine he would come in and replace him. But the big news, Adam Reynolds. He'll have surgery this week, ruptured bicep. He will miss probably 3 months. They hope to have him back doing contact work in about 10 weeks, give him a couple to get right, 12 weeks. So just in time for their run home to the finals for Adam Reynolds. That's a big blow.
You've seen a few ruptured biceps in your time?
Yeah, and if it's a clean rupture, like there's a chance to rehab it, and they don't look great when you have it because it looks like half your biceps missing because it rolls up. But yeah, it depends. Every injury is different. There is a chance to rehab, but if they've elected for surgery, which is probably the right move, because 12 weeks, 3 months, it sounds like a lot, but they have Jock Matten waiting in the wings. They probably have an experienced and confident enough team now. It's not necessarily about whether they fade out, because I think they definitely can still make the finals. It just depends in what shape they can and how good they're sitting, because if Adam's to miss most of the season, he's going to come back in the probably really good shape in the back end of the year. And if they're going anywhere halfway decent, we know how much he's going to add to that team, and it could be the spark they need heading into September. So the young boys up there who are, well, not so young anymore, who have got enough experience and know-how, they need to really cover this loss and just keep the wins ticking over, keep the season ticking over, because they know they have a little ace up their sleeve who's going to come back into the team if they're good enough to be in good position come the back end of the season.
I think the last couple of weeks in the form of Jock Madden would allow everyone just to breathe easy in Brisbane at the moment. He's been pretty impressive. He filled in at 6, I think, against the Tigers, and was good until he got injured, and we saw him fill in for Renault a couple of weeks ago and also performed quite well. So he seems to be developing into a really good half, and I'm with Wado. Like if you want Renault to play 12 or 14 games a year, when do you want him to play it? And that's in September, that's in August, and that's when he's going to be available again. So they've certainly got the depth of squad. They're probably going to have 4 guys in Origin, I would imagine. So they're going to go through that, but. Their resources are going to be tested, but if they get Adam Reynolds back in round 24 or 23 and he gets 2 or 3 games under his belt before the finals and they're still up around the top 4, they'll be in good shape.
Yeah, I mean, the idea of having him fresh and ready to go in August is great, but you'd rather manage him rather than pop his bicep, I think, on the way through.
Let's be honest, his knee's not 100%. He's been carrying that for a while.
Correct, yeah.
And the way Gers just put it is better than any way to put it. If you want him to play 12 or 14 games a year, and that's all you need him to play, when do you want him on the field? Get him on the back end of the field in August and September when it really counts and when you want to win the competition. So, and they've got enough with Jock and the depth and the experience in their squad now. Like Origin will test them, obviously, with missing some guys, but they're still in decent shape. If they get there, they're still in decent shape.
So let me ask you this then. The narrative around Adam Reynolds when he left South Sydney, and Blake Solly, the CEO, made the point this week that everyone just assumes that he walked. They let him go. They didn't want him. They did offer him a 1-year deal. Their concern was that his body, by year 3, which is what he wanted, would start to shut down from what they've seen over the course of his career. So they offer him the 1 year, reluctant, maybe go 2, but he wants 3. He takes the 3. He's in his 3rd year right now at the Broncos, and we've seen, as you said, he's had a knee injury, he's had a few issues with his legs, and now he has this bicep injury. Can you understand South Sydney's reluctance then to go and not give him the 3 years? They were relying on him, his understanding, because he's been there so long. And I imagine Adam Reynolds was relying on their loyalty because he'd been such a good servant for so long. Did they get it wrong? Did they get it horribly wrong, South Sydney, seeing what we saw seeing now?
Horribly wrong. Because, of course, they needed to manage a situation where they had a young Lachlan Ilias in their system, and they would have had to manage a situation with Adam to try maybe finesse it a bit more on the 3rd year, like give him the 2nd year for sure.
Which I think they were talking about. They were willing to maybe go 2 years.
And then if you manage to keep him on your books and you have a young Lachlan Ilias as his apprentice, and you, even if you back your performance staff saying, oh, we have doubts about Adam playing 26 games a year, well, there's a ready-made 7 ready to come in and develop under Adam, learn his trade, how to manage the game, how to not just deal with the footy, deal with the stuff off the field, because that's the hardest part.
Yeah.
The footy actually becomes the easiest part the older you get, because you know how to manage the off-field stuff. Now you fast forward 3 years, Adam, sure, he's breaking down, but we're just talking about how good Jock Madden's going and deputising under him, being able to come in. That should have been Ilias.
And
now
also
Souths have none.
And also, Wado, you look at Mam and the way that he took over last night, and you can just tell the influence that in game management Adam Reynolds is having on him, knowing what he needs to do when he hasn't got Madden and when he hasn't got Reynolds on there. Like, he made a real difference in that element of the contest last night. Man, he obviously didn't get the job done, but you can just see how he's developed in that role as well, and I'm sure that's on the back of conversations and time spent with Reno.
Yeah. And look, and the concern about older bodies, I guess, can be justified, but young bodies get broken as well. Lachlan Ilias running around New South Wales Cup breaks his leg.
Yeah.
I mean, it's all sliding doors.
Yeah, keeping older guys around the club, it's not necessarily always about their input on the field as well. It's their input within the group, input around the young guys, giving them a cuddle when they need a cuddle, or giving them a bit of a hard word when they need a hard word. If you look at the teams who don't have a real quality group of senior players, I'm not talking about representative players, I'm talking about senior players who have been around the game 12, 13, 14, 15 years, that's when you get the inconsistencies in their form.
Well, that's what the Roosters wanted Luke Keary to play one more year, to continue help Sam Walker develop into that halfback role. And he's had some really good games, Sam Walker, this year. Obviously, there were some inconsistencies last year. But now that he's decided to pull the pin, they're left in a situation now, the Roosters, where they don't have that in their halves anymore. And they're going to have to go with Sam Walker and Sandon Smith unless they can find some other senior voice. So you're right, the value of having that senior figure in your halves is huge. And you see that with like Cherry Evans, Sean Johnson. These guys are adding so much value both on and off the field.
All right, well, let's have a listen to Brisbane coach Kevy Walters talking not just about Adam Reynolds' injury, but the performance last night itself.
Yeah, not looking too good for him. He's got the bicep injury, torn bicep. So
is it season ending potentially, or you're not sure?
Potentially. Yeah. We're very fortunate at our club. We've got great depth in all positions, and Jesse Arthurs has broken his jaw as well. So 2 long-term injuries for us, but I'm more concerned with how we played tonight than anything else. So we can fix that. We just kicked the ball away, silly little kicks, and you can't build pressure when you do that. And there's other parts of our game too that I haven't been happy with in the last 3 or 4 weeks, which got exposed tonight. So yeah, we've got plenty to work on, that's for sure. But the good thing is round 9. So
with Adam out and Jock still a maybe, is this really now the time for Ezra to take on an even greater ownership?
Oh no, I think the ownership needs to be spread across the group, with Paddy there, with Reece, with Ezra, and with Billy and Tyson. They all need to step up in that space when Renault's not there.
There was a little bit of ball wasting from the Broncos. And Reece Walsh, who we all think and know is absolutely brilliant and had his great moments last night, he and Ezra Mam got them back to 18 all after Adam Reynolds was gone from the field. But in the first half particularly, a lot of those little kicks before, they just kind of get, rather than just powering downfield, just trying some little things that didn't work, Girds.
Yeah, well, they were just impatient, as Kevy said, and that works. They've had a couple of kind of cheap wins against the Tigers and the Raiders and the Dolphins of late, where they fell into that trap of, well, we'll outscore you. And if you look at the sides that they've struggled against this year, they got beat twice now by the Roosters. They got beat by Melbourne. They got beat by the Panthers, and they're the sides that you need to build your game to beat. You need to go out there with a different mentality. And sometimes it's okay when you've got so much natural ability just to go out there and blow some of the sort of less consistent sides off the field. And that's what they can do. And they can do that in 15. They can do that in 10-minute windows when they want to. There's no other side in the comp that can attack like the Broncos in those certain periods of the game. But if you want to go out and you want to be a contender and you want to match the better sides in the competition, you need to play for 60, 70 and sometimes 80 minutes and be happy with the result. Sometimes it's a little bit boring, especially when you've got Ferraris out there in the garage and you just want to, grab the keys and go for a run. But That's going to be the hard thing, It's going to be the messaging from Kevy about his team over the next couple of weeks is just, knowing what style of game they need to play and who they're playing against and respecting their opponents. They didn't respect the Roosters last night, and the Roosters hurt them.
They did indeed. They've hurt a couple of teams recently after looking a bit dodgy themselves earlier in the season. You like the look of the turnaround?
Yeah, I think so. And there's some players who have been down on form over the last couple of years or out of luck, really, who have really helped turn this around. I think Connor Watson's been outstanding. Angus Crichton, he's been enormous, and he probably gets himself back into the origin conversation. Brandon Smith, he wasn't at his best last year. He's been better for him this year. So I know they've got the big names who we always say are important to them, but it's the other guys who haven't had good seasons that are really lifting for the Roosters at the moment.
Yeah, they're starting to warm, the Roosters, you can tell. At Anzac Day clash, I thought it was going to be a lot closer just because of the occasion, but adding Sammy Walker, I think they miss Sammy Walker a lot because the Roosters' style is very unique, the way they play. They play that fast tempo with Manu carrying a lot, Teddy playing a lot. But Walker, he's a point of difference. I don't even think he knows what he's doing half the time when he's out on the field, but that's what makes him so dangerous, his unpredictability. And just adding that back in, that different point of attack, everyone else goes about their business. It allows the Roosters to become really dangerous. And they did well last night. They got to an early lead. Brisbane responded. And then when the game was in the balance, as Gerd said, and Kevy said, the Broncos made a couple of poor decisions at the end of sets, and that was enough for the Roosters to get back on top, get the momentum, and go on with it. So they're starting to warm to the task.
In the past, Tony, I think, and I spoke about the Roosters and their attack last week, how, it's very different when Victor comes back in and they play him sort of first receiver and everyone plays off him. And I'm not sure that suits Sam Walker. Well, it doesn't, because we've seen how Sam can play the last couple of weeks. But I think what's happened now is, the Roosters on the back of momentum, they've always seen like this bit of a scrap. Who gets the football? Does Teddy get it? Does Kiri come in and get it? Does Smith run from dummy half? How do we get the ball to Joey Manu? And there's all this confusion on the back of momentum. And I think now what it looks like to me is that on the back of momentum, Sam gets the ball. And that's just allowed everyone just to relax, because everyone gets excited on a half breaker or momentum when you're dominating the middle third of the field. Everyone wants the football because they're seeing opportunity. And I think in the past it's been confusing to understand, especially for the dummy half of the Roosters, who should get the ball and when, and who's pulling the trigger. And you generally, if you're the dummy half, you're going to give it to the guy is converting opportunities. And I think that's really been changed over the last, few years. But if you look at all the other sides that have a lot of success, they always go to the same person on the back of momentum. When there's an opportunity, there's one person that's going to get the football and he's going to convert that for him. And I think now they've found that in Sam, and I think it's just allowed a lot of those other guys just to relax.
What an effort from the Canberra Raiders. They were 20 points down to Mount. It was all party at Four Pines Park at that point. 20-0 they led. But the Raiders came back and managed to get that job done right at the death. Remarkable comeback.
Yeah, just another example of how big the momentum swings can be in the modern game. There's reasons for this with the new rule changes. They certainly take into effect a couple of 6 agains. Keep that pressure on the opposition. All of a sudden, you get that momentum through the ruck. You have them on the back foot, and you feel like you're in control of the game, despite being down by so many points. And it was a couple of the old experienced head of Elliott White. He found a couple of plays there, the intercept before half time to find some points, and then he found that try.
He was on hands and knees when that ball fell in his lap. It was great.
He found a couple of tries after half time, and Manly will be really disappointed with that. Like, to have a 20-0 gap in the first half at home and they're not being able to put it away, particularly with the experience they have in Cherry Evans, Luke Brooks, Travojevic brothers. You need to be put those games away, and unfortunately they're the games you look back at in the back end of the year when you need to win the last 3 of your last 4 to get into the top 4. You need to win the last one to get into the top 4, and you just don't quite make it. There's that extra pressure, and you look back and go, there's a valuable 2 points we let slip.
That may be exactly what Coach Anthony Seabolt was thinking when he spoke to the media after the game.
It's clear to see that we got what we deserved in the end. I think we're up 20-0. We just didn't have a hard enough edge to finish the job. And you've got to give Raiders credit. They got beaten 40-0 5 days ago. So they played really tough, and they got what they deserved because they kept playing tough and they were full of effort. I keep talking about we're in this cluster of teams that on any given day can beat anybody else, and we're trying to break that cluster. So for us to get to the next level that we want to do as a team, then we need to make sure that we finish games off like that. And because it's not easy, like the NRL's hard to, it's a hard competition. It's probably the toughest in either rugby code in the world to win games. So that's our area for growth. We need to make sure that we finish the job off, and at the moment we allowed them to come back into the game, and they were good enough to take it.
Yeah, should have got the job done 20-0 up.
Yeah,
but,
without a doubt.
Yeah.
Chammy, is anyone monitoring these 6 agains?
What do you
How
mean?
do they? Because what's happening, right, is during these games, the referee's just calling it unless you're kind of there, or obviously just on the screens, people watching it at TV at home, you just can't see what they're for, and you can't justify it. And all of a sudden, you just hear the ding on the screen, and then the commentator will say, "Oh, there's a 6 against." So are they obviously they're going through that midweek, are they, with the referees' bosses? Because it's just changing. Wade spoke about, I mean, the amount of influence that has now in our game, it's just insane, these momentum swings. And the score blowouts is starting to get to the point where games are becoming boring, because the sides are just having this football in that end of the field, and it always happens when they're attacking the goal line, and you just hear it. Last night, I think, the Raiders at some point, and it was, I don't know whether it was warranted or not, it was the Sea Eagles in the first half when they scored those 20 points. The ref just kept going 6 again, then it will happen for the second half in the Raiders, and it just doesn't allow that team that's under the pressure to wrestle back momentum. It just becomes way too hard.
It sounds like to me you're calling the game stupid, Girds. Is that what you're trying to say? The game is stupid?
I think the part of the game is as stupid as it's ever been,
20K.
and probably stupider in certain areas.
he's allowed
I'm
to
not
say what he's
affiliated
like.
with
He's
the
not- yeah.
organisation. But yeah, so it
know what
was
you're
an
saying.
interesting one.
But tell me,
I just
what's-
hope that they're held accountable for every time that they feel like, because they don't do it all the time. And I hope they're not just picking and choosing the moments where they feel like they're just giving away those 6 agains, because I think it's having a real detrimental effect on the game at the moment.
But maybe it is teams that are actually just toying with the rule because they're not going to get a penalty against them, so they are, there are ruck infringements, they are offside.
Yeah, there's no doubt that teams, particularly on the goal line, they tread a fine line down there. They're willing to fight that little bit extra to gain that extra second, because it's a benefit to your defensive line. And we saw the other night in the South Penrith game, Adam G got sick of it and he put Jai Arrow in the bin. But I agree with Girds, in some games it feels like the refs, like over in Vegas, they did an awesome job. Ashley Klein did an awesome job. I forget who the other referee was, but he did an awesome job. The games were free flowing. It was a great example of our product, and it's sort of like we knew we were on a big stage. We knew we had to give the best example of our product, so we let the game be played. And there's a reason we love Origin so much. It's because the players sort out the game. The refs take a backward step, and unless it's something very obvious that needs to be adjudicated on, an act of foul play, or someone's literally holding down for way too long, they let the game flow, and the players get in the rhythm. They earn their momentum through either a good kicking game or a great defensive effort, and it's a much better product to watch. And it's the same with finals. The refs take a step back and they let they let the natural rhythm of the game sort it out, because when you get to that level in the finals, in Origins, the players will sort it out.
But you can't do it every week, though, Wade, because if you do it every week, then they're going to take advantage of it. So that's why you sort of this whole argument about, okay, we do these in the big games. Like they did it in Vegas, they do it in Origin. But then if you keep doing it, they're just going to take advantage of it. The clubs, the coaches, they know that the refs aren't going to ping you for something.
Maybe it's time to rehash. If we're talking about how many rule changes we're happy to bring in, like maybe just the 5 minutes in bin or something like that. If there's repeated infringements, the ref can make a call to the captain on the run saying, listen, I'm not liking the way this is going. I'm not going to disrupt the game because you boys are taking the mickey out of me. Keep going, and there'll be a consequence.
But do you know, like, I take your point on a lot of rule changes and it's becoming a little bit confusing, but don't you think the spectacle of the game's as good as it has been in a long time?
Not when, as Gert is saying, all of a sudden one team has 10-6 against, the other team gets none, and then in the second half you flip it around, the other team gets 10-6 against, and And the other,
It's just been,
And it's actually a boring. It's actually a boring part of the field to watch attacking from. Like that 10 metres out from the line, and that's where it's always happening. And it's actually quite boring to watch sides just fumbling their way around the defensive line set. That's why the teams are giving away all that possession and the opportunities, because their confidence in their system just to withhold that period. It's boring attack. And I think sometimes, Wade, what frustrates me with some of the rule changes and referees not using discretion is, sometimes you earn the right. So as you talk about, when there's an arm wrestle, you're going tit for tat with the opposition, you finally start, breaking through. You start earning the right just to get down and play down their end a little bit. And then all of a sudden, you got your guys, you've kicked to a corner, everyone compresses up, and you leave that line a little bit early to jam the wingers and the fullbacks in the corner. You kind of earn the right to do that sometimes, but these days, same as when you're defending on your own line, you get back quick, you get up, you always got to get up that little bit quicker, but the referees are taking that right away that's actually been earned by the players, and I'd imagine that's really frustrating when that happens.
That all that said, Graham Annesley did release some figures saying that long-range tries, there were far more of them this season than there has been for years, and talking about the quality and the the enjoyment of the game. It's one of those we can. So I think the word is circle back to this. We're running out of time right now. This is Saturday Scrum. Coach Jason Demetriou, would he survive? Well, he didn't. Sacked 48 hours before the game against Penrith this week. Micheal Chammas, how did it all go down?
It was a big day on Tuesday. I arrived there about 8:30 in the morning on Tuesday. The board meeting had just started. I didn't leave till 10 p.m. that night. Like there was a lot to unfold from that first board meeting. That was everyone. Everyone thought that when the board members walked out, we'd get an announcement soon after that Jason Demetriou was gone. We all sat around waiting. I actually rang Jason and he answered. And I said, if he's still got a job, he said, as far as I'm concerned, yes. And he was waiting around. He decided to leave training and head home. He walked out the front door, unaware if he was going to return or not. And then the board decided to call a second board meeting later that night. So what had happened was Russell Crowe was determined to give Jason Demetriou more time. And he was trying to convince his directors, his representatives on the board, to push for that. And that's why there was a stalemate at that point, and they decided to come back at the end of later in the afternoon, because they weren't budging on a willingness to give Jason more time, to the point where Russell actually spoke to Jason Demetriou and said, mate, I've got your back. I have the ability to call the shots at this club. Don't worry. It highlights how his power has diminished at the club since selling a part of his shares in the business. And then we get to a point at 7:30 at night where Jason Demetriou has been told by the club, Blake Solly called him and said, it's over, effective immediately. It was really harsh the way it all happened for him to be waiting around. I think South Sydney gave him ample time, though. I don't think South Sydney can be accused of not giving him the time he needed to turn it around, because the things that they felt should have been fixed, it should have been fixed over the off-season, and to the point where they felt they were getting worse. It wasn't like last year they were showing signs of improvement. The board felt as though they were deteriorating rapidly. And the most interesting part I found is though they let Jason Demetriou instill a player-led culture, right? He instilled a lot of power in those guys, a lot of responsibility. And because he did so, they didn't think he had the ability and to turn it around and take that away from him. Because if you do that and you give the players all the voice and a lot of control, to take it away, it's coaching suicide, right? They felt the person who had to do that had to be somebody fresh, and they decided to part ways with Jason Demetriou.
It's funny, isn't it, the way sports and rugby league journalism works? Because in the lead up, it was all, look, he's got to go. This isn't working. Jason Demetriou, sadly, but you have to go. He goes, and then Blake Solly turns up and says, how could you sack him? It's so cruel the way you did that. The guy deserved another chance. The story changes every moment. What about the leaking? There's often been talk about that from way back at South Sydney. The email he sent to the players.
The message he sent. Yeah. Look, I know that the players were a bit concerned about that within 5 minutes of Jason Demetriou informing his players that he was moved on effective immediately. The text message ended up in the Sydney Morning Herald. Now, it was the story. I had my name on the story, but I hadn't received the text message. It was actually Adrian Prozhenko who got that part of the story, and the players were disappointed that had gotten out so quickly, among other things that we'd reported in the last few weeks about things that were seeping out of team meetings. So
Talk about leaks. Like I was on 360 when Buzz broke the story, and he actually stated, I got a text message from someone in the board meeting saying that JD was terminated effective immediately. Like, it doesn't get any more
under the desk while he's at the board meeting.
It doesn't even get any more leaky than that. Like, this is the highest level of the club, board members, sensitive information being spoken about, like direction of the club, direction of the coach, and someone in that board meeting messages Buzz.
The board meeting was over, though. The board meeting was over.
That's not how Buzz stated.
I don't know how Buzz stated, but the board meeting was over because by that time we had our story up. Jason Demetriou hadn't been informed, and the players were just about to be told. So the board meeting had ended.
So you're going to have a stoush with Buzz now. Because he said, I've had someone from the board meeting.
I didn't see what Buzz said. I was actually out there at Heffron Park all day for 12 hours, and the board meeting was over by that point. And that's why things started to seep out, because the coach had been told, the players were starting to get told. Ben Hornby received a phone call from Blake Solly that he was going to be the assistant coach. So things started to happen. I think it's unfair on South Sydney to suggest that someone was in there texting journos as they were making the decision to say he was gone.
Well, you're going to have to take that up with Buzz,
I'll ring Buzz.
Do you want me to ring Buzz?
I'll ring him a call
right
on the
now,
break.
because that's how he broke the story.
Good news is that Ben Hornby, as interim coach, now when he was playing Dragons, the person who had the sign can break it back out, honk if you're Hornby. Which I used to love. What did you make of it all, Ryan?
Oh, well, I thought it took probably a little bit longer than it needed to. I know there was a lot of T's that needed to be crossed and whatnot, but I thought it was just dragged out, and you just get that from clubs that you can just tell that, like they always say, the success obviously starts at the top, and we've seen that with the Tigers over the last few years. We've seen that with different organisations. I mean, when they start sort of performing really badly, it seems to all be falling apart for them. So they obviously needed a change. I think it's the right move. I'm not sure who they get to come in to fix that. I get the feeling that it needs to be someone that's willing to kind of rebuild that organisation, someone that's really, not just coming in to help them sort of try and win a premiership, because I don't believe they're in a window at the moment. I think there's a fair bit of work that needs to be done to their roster to get them to where they need to be to have, someone come in and just take them to a premiership or a title. So, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of work that needs to be done at South Sydney, and I'm not sure who's on the market. I know that everyone's talking about Wayne. I'm not sure whether Wayne will take that position or whether or not it needs to be someone that's at a different stage of their career, willing to roll up the sleeves and get that organisation back on its feet.
I'll be stunned if it's not Wayne Girds. I'll be stunned if it's not just about there already, to be honest with you. There's a 3-year deal that's going to be tabled to him. It'll be Wayne Bennett, and if he's not, then maybe I'll just go with Wade and play golf on Saturdays.
Well, I get the feeling that there's already someone in the wings as well. Like, you don't go over to England and sign a player like Lewis Dodd when a young man over in England isn't going to up and move his family to a club who's running on the bottom of the table, who's had an 18-month car crash of a period, if he doesn't know who the coach is going to be. You're not going to commit to a club like that if you don't have
at least an indication.
Have an indication or an inkling who the coach is going to be. And the only one I can see who has that type of sway would be Bennett. And I think
he's denied having anything to do with the enlisting Lewis Dodd. Wayne Bennett said
I don't think Wayne
never seen him play.
I don't think Bennett enlisted him. But what I do think is that Lewis Dodd was under the impression that if he came over, there's every chance he's going to be coached by Wayne Bennett. Wayne's an interesting one, because Girds didn't mention Wayne in that point in regards to they don't need a coach who's going for premiership success. They need to rebuild the club. And Wayne is so narrow-focused. His focus is going to be on winning a premiership. It's not about the pathways or developing a system that sets him up for success for 10 years. That's not Wayne Bennett. He's not coming in for that. So clearly, if he's coming, the club believes they're still in a premiership window. And to Girds' point, I don't know if they are. They are falling apart very quickly. Some of the guys in the team are starting to age pretty quickly. But why are we even talking about it? Because it will be Wayne Bennett. He's coming back. He's going to be respected by the players. Yeah. They know that.
His relationship with Cody Walker, with Latrell Mitchell, worked for them last time.
Yeah.
I guess that's one of the things he brings.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking,
You're being pensive.
No, I'm just thinking. Well, I think Wayne's the right guy, right? Because I just mentioned that. Well, everyone knows about the well-documented disharmony in the board and the football program, the club. Sort of Wayne comes in and sits above all that, and he would just say to the people in the club, don't worry. Like, I'll contact you when we need your help. You just let me worry about the football. He's a power unto himself when he runs the footy program, and he has all the respect. And yes, they are. They're in disarray at the moment. They're lacking confidence in their playing ability, but the talent doesn't go away. Like Cam Murray's talent doesn't go away. Latrell's talent doesn't go away. Jack White and Cody, all that talent doesn't go away. It just takes someone to bring it all together, because at the moment they look disjointed. They don't look like a footy team that's playing for each other, because teams that play for each other, they turn up in the hard moments. They turn up in the kick chase. On that 20 tap, someone finds a way. Well, not someone, at least half the team gets back, because you know your mate's depending on you to get back and make a tackle and cover the ball that went over. So they tried really hard. I feel bad having a crack at them from the other night, because they tried really hard. They did, and they threw everything they had into Penrith. They got to a 12-0 lead. Unfortunately for them, they just came up against Penrith, who they're relentless. They never stop. So when the energy had to run out eventually, and Penrith are the team to make you pay for that. But they did have a crack the other night, and they get Latrell back this week, and there is a glimmer of hope in the future that there is a resolution to all the innuendo around will he coach, will he not coach. But they need a big figure to come in, and I think it is Wayne.
Chamo, why would Wayne commit so early on? I mean, for mine, he holds all the cards, right? Like he's obviously done a good job at the Dolphins there for a couple of seasons. Everyone knows that he wants to continue coaching. Everyone knows the game, and there's definitely one job that's available. There doesn't seem to be really anyone else on the market, and if there is anyway, I mean, Wayne pretty much would come over the top of most other applicants. And we all know that by the end of the year, there might be another 2 jobs maybe, or who knows what's going to happen in this game of ours. So why is it in Wayne's best interest to sign now this early and take himself out of the market?
Well, I think the club you're referring to is Parramatta, right? And I think that, I know that there have been third parties have gone to Parramatta and said Wayne Bennett is interested in talking about joining Parramatta if there is a coaching availability. And Parramatta have made that abundantly clear there is no coaching position to be discussed right now. There was a board meeting held on Wednesday night. They didn't want to pursue what had been relayed to them from third parties. They're backing the coach. They think they've had a horror run with injuries, and they think that he can turn it around. Wayne, though, I don't know, Gert. Do you think Wayne is better suited to Parramatta, though, than the Rabbitohs?
Well, whether it's Parramatta or someone else, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in the game. Someone goes on is at a club that, look at Newcastle, not that he'd ever go back there, but I mean, a club can go on a 5-game losing streak, then all of a sudden the coach is on the rack, and then who knows what's going to open up at the back end of the season. But in relation to your question, yeah, I do. I believe that, Parramatta are definitely in a window at the moment. They have had some injuries. I think Brad Arthur's done a really good job, and they've been a consistent side for a long time. But I feel like they need another voice or another influence to take them to that next level. We've seen their results against some of the quality sides in the NRL. They've got the best record against Penrith. They always seem to aim up in those games, but there's just something that holds them back from going to the level where I think all their players could achieve that sort of success and potentially win a title, and he might be the guy to get that out of them.
So
maybe the board at Parramatta don't want someone as influential as Wayne coming in.
So if you're sitting on the board, though,
take them out a little bit.
If you're sitting on the board, though, you're saying that they should react to the South Sydney Rabbitohs having a vacancy and on the verge of signing Wayne Bennett. They should fast track what they're doing there.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying, hasn't Parramatta been in that phase anyway for the last 3 or 4 weeks based on their performance, and especially after Darwin?
Yeah.
And I think that, sometimes depending on the situation, if you've got like Wayne Bennett sitting on the shelf who's about to get taken off, and you're on the fence with where you're at with your coach, you don't want to wait till round 18 and then Wayne's gone and then there's no one left and you think, oh, gee, that would have been a good idea at the time. You need to be proactive if that's the way that, they might go in the end.
I think Parramatta have looked at what Wayne has done in the past at different clubs and thought, we don't want to set this club back. Because you got to remember, this administration was brought in after a period where the Eels have had so much upheaval and they really couldn't get themselves right. As a club, they're a pretty good club right now. They run really well. Yep. They've had a lot of success without a premiership. If they go and sign Wayne, their fear is that they then neglect everything they've worked so hard to get right. Because, as I said earlier, Wayne's focus is so narrow on that premiership and winning a comp with the first grade team that everything else will fall by the wayside. I think Parramatta would prefer a coach who will actually come in and have a whole of club focus.
Yeah, sure, but I mean, what like their pathway? Are they doing really well with their pathways at the moment? Are they?
No, they're not. I think they've won.
Exactly. Like what part of their club? I mean, the commercial partnerships that might be going well. The leagues clubs might be running well, but you ask the hundreds of thousands of Parramatta fans out there that haven't won a title since '86. What do they want to do?
They want Wayne.
Yeah, they want to win. They want to win. They want to win a title.